Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of 50% Fresh. Today, I'm excited. We're going to cover the first documentary we have covered on the show.
That is true. It's been described as possibly the most irresponsible picture ever released by a major film studio. One critic called it a leading example of the decline of Western civilization. And we're talking about Jackass, the movie.
Yeah, from 2002. A seminal movie for both of us. A movie that, among other things, we'll talk about it, but a 49% on Rotten Tomatoes. So the critics, if you can believe it, not over the moon about it.
Yeah. It was directed by Jeff Tremaine, starring the usual suspects, including Johnny Knoxville, Bam Margera, and Steve-O.
And my apologies if this is redundant for any listeners, but just the quickest of histories of how this movie came to be. There was a show, Jackass, for 3 seasons on MTV. Hidden cameras and pranks and stunts and outrageous behavior, hilarious stuff. It was basically some people making a skateboarding magazine called Big Brother, hooked up with some people in Westchester making some CKY skate videos, and which had a lot of stunts and things on them. Along the way, they met a guy from a clown college in Florida named Steve-O. Somewhere along the way, a producer named Spike Jones, who was a very important MTV music director and things like that, helped facilitate a TV show. 3 very culturally impactful, funny seasons of television that came with it a lot of heat, right?
Yeah, so basically the movie came about because they were tired of the red tape involved with making the TV show. There was a Senator Joe Lieberman from Connecticut. He wanted to cancel the show. He sort of made it his whole thing.
He was like running or something, right? Or like not even running, but just that was his whole deal.
Yeah, he wanted to take down MTV and specifically Jackass. There's a quote from Johnny Knoxville talking to Vice in 2017 about what was going on. He said, "It was an election year and Joseph Lieberman decided to be tough on Hollywood as part of his campaign platform. He singled the show and MTV out, and after that, the screws came down." They assigned a safety guy to the show that basically told them to stop doing the things that they like to do, involving jumping off of things. I assume bodily fluids.
Yeah, I think too, and maybe just like the nature of the show was it was born out of making skate videos or just making videos with your friends or whatever, of just running around. And then when it started to be like, you have to close the streets and all these things, it just became just a lot of complicated in a lot of ways. Well,
I think part of what put the show on Joe Lieberman's radar is there were a few copycat incidents, or like even though there's a disclaimer, of course.
Please don't do it. What else can you say?
Yeah, but that didn't stop kids from doing things like trying to mimic what they saw.
It was such a reaction to that show that people had, not me personally, but being like in high school when the show was on MTV. Not only would you see dumbasses jumping into bushes or whatever, fine, but like people something about the show made people go, I'm gonna send this in a Jackass. And like, have you watched the show? It's not Bob Saget going, here's something from Atlanta, Georgia, this guy fell down the stairs.
There's no prize money.
It's these guys, yeah, like, right. There's no prize money. There's no anything. And I think at some point, in addition to the disclaimer on the show, they put another, like, not that disclaimers are they help at all,
like
maybe.
That little crawl at the bottom.
It's like, we don't look at submissions. We're not even going to open it. This isn't that kind of show, pal. But nevertheless, the copycats were rampant.
Yeah, at the time, around 2001, Joe Lieberman put out a news release that said it was irresponsible for MTV to air these kinds of stunts on a program clearly popular with young teens. He said that despite the show's MA rating and the disclaimers, there are some things that are so potentially dangerous and inciting to vulnerable children that they should not be put on TV. So, basically, the Jackass guys decided it wasn't really worth the trouble anymore, so as kind of a last hurrah, they were going to put a movie together, and the idea was to make it bigger and grosser and more ambitious than anything on the show had been.
Yeah, and maybe just like, like South Park comes to mind or something. It's like, it's an R-rated movie now. You can't get mad if kids saw it because there's a system in place that says, you can only see this movie if you're of a certain age or with a guardian or something. Like, we've done our part. You can draw that line a little harder. And it's funny to hear about some hesitancy when they were going to first talk about making a movie. Like, well, what would that look like? How would we even do this little show as a movie? These 20-minute things we've been putting together. And I understand that, but also in hindsight, like, how is it ever not a movie? Because on MTV they couldn't do any of the stuff they do in the movie. You know, like, it seems like my point is the movie feels like them reaching what this thing kind of always should have been, right? Without the restrictions and without that's too high to jump off of, and you should be in a hazmat suit if that man's going to vomit into a frying pan.
And we can't show scrotum on TV.
You can't show, like I said, so many of the bits are, I guess you just blur a lot of stuff, but then of course it lacks the punch and everything.
Sure. So what was your history, or what is your history with Jackass? Did you see the movie in the theaters?
I did see the movie in the theaters. I remember very vividly seeing the movie a little bit after it had been out, and when something sort of has that you got to see this movie, this is the funniest fucking thing, like that, just sort of like what's going on. I remember it very clear. It was the fall of 2002. I had just moved from my hometown to the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan. I remember going to see it with my at the time my friends who are now my new roommates, and just a handful of movies I've seen in the theaters where my memory is just, it's probably exaggerated, but we're just like flailing around and laughing and slapping our legs and all of that, just like
Was it a raucous theater?
It wasn't even raucous because it had been out for a while, so my memory is us four echoing this, like I'm sure, like I would see Jackass 2 later on like an opening night, and that was like, oh, loud, amazing. It's like you're at a concert, people 100 to 200 people screaming, laughing. This was like 4 guys in a big empty room screaming, laughing. So that was very vivid. But I was a little bit too cool for school when the show dropped because like I said, I would be going to like shows. I was probably a little bit insufferable to be like, oh, MTV, huh? I'm sure there was that a little bit, but I would go to like local shows and you'd see kids riding their bikes into bushes, and it was just like, it felt so try-hardy to me that it made me sort of annoyed. The whole thing, I was you can keep all that shit that's making these kids all annoying, because it had a really impact, like we're like the copycats, and it just made people a little obnoxious.
Yeah. So at the time Jackass was starting to become really popular, I was like in 6th grade. Mm-hmm. So that's why I've always sort of not really liked Bam Margera, because he just, every annoying 11-year-old kid that was like in the back of the class lighting the carpet on fire or whatever the fuck. Yeah. Just was emulating Bam.
Yeah.
So right. I just, as soon as I finally became exposed to the crew, I was like, I don't know.
This is
reminds me of like Travis in fucking 5th grade or whatever.
Travis from Taxi Driver?
Oh. No, I'm...
Oh, like a kid. Yeah, okay, sorry. My brain was going, Travis. Who the fuck's Travis? Travis and Jackass? No, Travis. Do we know what Travis? Who's Travis?
I just thought it was a good...
It was good. Travis is a 5th grade shithead.
With like, he acts up and gets sent to the hall a lot, but then he's got like a really well manicured faux hawk that his mom clearly helped him with.
This is like a time and place you're describing this kid. Yeah. Right. He got decked out in new school clothes for PacSun before he had a hellish year in school, and there's no way the mom would spend $100 on an Element hoodie again. Just
the biggest, widest leg jeans you ever did see. If he jumped off of something tall, he would probably kind of like float.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't like, I definitely I hung out with some Jackass adjacent people. I definitely wasn't the smartest or the but what, you know what I mean? Like I can't say that I wasn't out in the hall myself, let's say. But kids would just be like lighting shit on fire or something, and I was like, I don't want to hang on light shit on fire. Can we just like joke around and like piss off the teachers or something? I don't want to light things on fire. But it takes all kinds.
Yeah.
But so then eventually, maybe it sounds like we both maybe had some hurdles to get over. Yeah. And then you see the movie or whatever at some point.
Yeah,
When did you see the movie then?
I don't all the way remember the first time I watched the movie, because I definitely didn't see it in the theater because I was too young for it.
Yeah.
But at this point in my life, I've seen Jackass, the movie, I don't know, probably 10 times, but I've actually never seen the whole thing because there are some bits that I cannot look at directly.
Yeah. And cover your eyes. Look away. I mean.
Yeah, I don't like anything with costumes. No, it's anytime there's a bodily function, let's say, I can't do it, man. I'm too squeamish.
And again, I wonder with some of the stuff with censors, the people that rate a movie and say what you can and can't do, there had to be so many unprecedented things. It's like with all these other movies, there's sex scenes and violence and stuff. But when it starts to be like, a guy's going to go take a shit in a hardware store and the camera's going to show it. Like,
yeah.
Okay, sure, but it's like, this is graphic and I don't have a lot to compare this to.
So on that, it's interesting to see where the lines are drawn because there aren't rules. So it seems like the ratings board is sort of just kind of winging it, as
right.
things come.
It's like,
so there's the one bit in the movie involves putting like muscle stimulators. You slap them on there, and then you hit a button, and then it makes your muscles contract, and it's painful. And naturally, they end up applied to somebody's scrotum, and they were not allowed to show the application. I forget who was applying.
I think Knoxville says he takes Pontius's penis out.
Yeah,
but in the movie, it's a hard cut.
Yeah,
which is comedic. Where it's like, okay, let's have my nuts and get it over with. But boom, suddenly they're on. But it sounds like they didn't have the option.
It was too much to show the handling.
And it's funny because it's like I think you can, maybe it's the times are changing, or just as a franchise they get to play the game, because like there's definitely some grappling in the most recent Jackass Forever where they're getting Preston Lacey screwed into like a little punching bag, and they have that robot punching thing. There's some teamwork. Sidebar. It's interesting how the times they are changing. Yeah. It's like that Bob Dylan song.
Progress. It's really nice.
So with that, I mean, then since Jackass the movie, I've been on board and got all the DVDs and seen all the movies and enjoy them all greatly. And
yeah, and the problem with like how at first you saw people emulating Jackass, and so did I, and it's like, I don't think I like this based on the people that it attracts, but then you actually get into it and you see that there's a lot more going on than just a bunch of guys slapping each other in the balls or whatever. Yeah,
and you see why there's a charisma and a chemistry there that it was so easy to, I would never do it, but you see why people are like, oh, I could do that, at least like me and my dumb friends or something, because you see it's like the camaraderie, which is always talked about with Jackass, and rightfully so, but that's like as much a part of it as anything.
But they have, and I guess this is a big credit to Johnny Knoxville, Jeff Tremaine, and Spike Jonze, since they seem to be like the driving force.
It seems, yeah, 3 executive producers that all also have their own specific what they do, yeah.
But they all everybody involved seems to share similar like comedic sensibilities and just this very classic sort of slapstick humor that is at the root of most of it, that doesn't involve shit or cum.
Yeah, yeah.
And even then, that's not exclusive.
Or puke or blood.
Sure.
Yeah.
And over time, it seems like the public opinion, the critical consensus, they've turned around on how they feel about Jackass. So the Rotten Tomatoes score for the first movie, this one, is 49%. Then Jackass number 2, 65%. Jackass 3D, 66%. And Jackass Forever, the most recent, 85%. Certified fresh.
Fucking, that was such a, it's like we said, the movie has always, well, 2 things. Maybe it's a slow burn for everyone, right? Because we were saying, we didn't like it. Everyone's like that. Critics, everyone. But yeah, just when Jackass Forever, it continues the trend of everyone liking it more all the time. But it also is as hacky and awful as this sounds. Everyone went through the awful COVID thing, and I think really realized how amazingly great and funny and pure and reliable Jackass is, and in a world of obviously just this isn't like other movies the way it's made. I joked about it being a documentary because it's so unlike anything, right? There's no scripting and casting and all that, but in a world of fucking goddamn sequels and remakes and stuff all the time too, Jackass has never once disappointed, and I think that's valuable, like whatever kind of movie it is.
Well, that's evidenced by the movie was the smash hit. Like it was a $5 million budget. It grossed $79.5 million worldwide, and I think it did a lot more on DVDs, I do not have those statistics.
No, yeah. Everyone I knew had the DVD.
We have the DVD now.
We have the DVD. And all those movies made a ton of money, and I think they make them for peanuts compared to what other Paramount movies are. All that, yeah.
Yeah, so people, I think just, the common man, you and I, we've always gone in for it more than critics. But the critics' consensus for Rotten Tomatoes for this one is there's a good chance you'll be laughing hysterically at one stunt but getting grossed out by the next one in this big screen version of the controversial MTV show.
So that's even like we all get grossed out by it, but not an inherently negative review. It's just like
it's like, yeah, it's a pretty.
What's your takeaway from this? Is it like, I'd kind of like to see that. I enjoy laughing hysterically. I'm willing to look away at the gross stuff, or is it like, oh no, you can keep all that?
Richard Roeper called it a disgusting, repulsive, grotesque spectacle, but it's also hilarious and provocative. God help me, thumbs up.
The perfect critic quote for that movie is "God help me, thumbs up."
Completely. I think they use that.
It's on. I think it's on the DVD cover. Yeah, that's lovely.
Roger Ebert, during an interview with Charlie Rose, he admitted to laughing at Jackass. He said, "I went to see Jackass, a shameful movie. I laughed all the way through it." And he said, "If I have to laugh, I have to tell you it's funny." But he, interestingly, he didn't actually review the movie. He didn't put out an official review of the movie.
My call, based on us looking at that a little bit, is I admire his, I guess, honesty, where he's like, look, I laughed. You got me. It's a comedy movie, and you made me laugh. But I think he also maybe couldn't bring himself to write the published review and give it whatever stars. If I have to recommend this, it has to get at least 2.5 or 3 stars, and I have to write 5 paragraphs about this or what. So I think he gave himself that.
There was at least one critic. There were, obviously a few that did positive reviews of it at the time. Mm-hmm. But LA Weekly critic Paul Malcolm made his list of the 10 best films of 2002, and he called it the most underrated film of the year.
Love that.
And I love that somebody was putting it out there like that.
It's just fun. It's just I like to see anyone. It's really, it could be apples and oranges when you start stacking up to other movies that came out in 2002. How does Jackass stack up to 8 Mile? How do you do that?
The Hot Chick.
It's better than The Hot Chick. Marginally better than 8 Mile.
Sorority Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of throw up in 8 Mile and the Jackass film.
We could probably spend a whole episode talking about the parallels. So this guy, A.O. Scott, whose review I read of Ready to Rumble, right?
Like A-hole Scott.
Yeah, oh my God. Perfect.
Yeah, from Ready to Rumble.
So he had a predictably annoying review of Jackass. He said, Jackass the movie does not offer much psychological insight, but it does suggest that the small tribe of young white men is motivated by extreme boredom and a playful, quasi-erotic, sadomasochistic camaraderie. They're drawn to pranks that involve nudity and anal penetration, as well as blunt trauma by means of bowling balls, boxing gloves, and miniature golf statuary. It's like a documentary version of Fight Club, shorn of social insight, intellectual pretension, and cinematic interest. But he says it's a supremely literal-minded version of slapstick. The pain that is mimicked in silent two-reelers or Tom and Jerry cartoons is here played in earnest, provoking a spasm of revulsion that mutates into shocked, involuntary laughter. Now you're getting it. A-hole Scott.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point.
It sort of is that thing a little bit of, I don't know, I get, we talked about this before of, to his credit, Roger Ebert used to say, I just, try to engage with the thing based on what it tried to do, and it would appear that A.O. Scott was just excuse me, where's the social insight? Where's the intellectual pretension? Where's the cinematic interest? This is just a bunch of nudity and boxing gloves. It's well, yeah, man, it's nudity and boxing gloves. It's brilliant. He just must not like documentaries.
Yeah, that's what's going on here. Or slapstick comedy. That's
true, too. You don't see a lot of slapstick documentaries.
What is a supremely literal-minded version of slapstick, as opposed to what version of slapstick?
High-minded stuff. Like when Charlie Chaplin dressed up like Hitler.
Yeah.
Which is rad.
And bounced a little ball around.
Yeah.
But...
No, yeah, it's just... I think,
what is he talking about?
I wonder how much of it, and this is merely speculating, but, what did critics think of this movie going into it? We talk about that a lot. Are you a critic and you're watching this Wednesday at noon? It's the MTV show that the fucking senator guys yelling about all the time. It's the guys that just hurt themselves and everything else. And even though you find yourself laughing, it's just like you said, sometimes that kid in class would make you laugh, and you're like, oh, God damn it, he threw that thing right at the teacher, whatever, I don't know.
Or he hit the teacher with a really good comeback.
Yeah.
On his way to the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe part of the knee-jerk rejection from the stuffiest of critics probably has to do with when you watch some of the footage, it's like, oh, they made a movie. They used real cameras and they had a sound stage or whatever. But then a lot of it is also just on shitty little hand cameras or hidden cameras on a pair of sunglasses or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that I think maybe if you're a stuffy critic, you don't like that. You don't like that it's not on pristine film or whatever.
Right. To evaluate the cinematography is to talk about how well Bam held the camera while they jumped a golf cart off of a thing.
I think it's stupid.
Yeah, it's also very like their loss.
I'm just guessing, by the way.
Yeah, I buy it though. I buy it.
We don't want these guys at our fancy party.
Mm-mm.
So, and it's funny that he kind of raised the cartoon comparison in a negative way, because that's one of the things I like about Jackass the most is we're going to make a guy crawl on his hands and knees through a bunch of mouse traps. Mm-hmm. But we're going to... There's a giant piece of cheese on one of them, and we're going to put him in a little mousy costume.
Yeah.
Little ears, tail.
It's like the details, the attention to it, and with that it really brings to life. It's like it's in Jackass too, but Johnny Knoxville holds a big rocket and gets shot up over a lake. And it's hilarious, it's incredible, but it's just the presence of mind or whatever to like make it the big red Looney Tunes rocket. Even we were watching, I think, Johnny Knoxville on like Howard Stern, I think. They're asking him, where'd you get this idea? And I forget what it even was. But without saying it like a joke because he's dead serious. Because I was watching Tom and Jerry, and there's and they almost stopped to laugh about it because it's such an absurd thing. You know, when you really think about a live action cartoon.
He was not joking.
Like
he was inspired.
Right.
A grown man was inspired.
And these are guys that like blow each other up and shit. And then like the rocket skates is probably straight out of the cartoon, some cartoon, right? Just strapping fireworks to roller skates. It's like it works perfectly for Wile E. Coyote until it, of course, doesn't. But it just doesn't even work for a second in real life. It's brilliant.
This might sound like an absurd comparison when talking about something that has so many, dicks in it, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of...
But Johnny Knoxville, there's like a direct line from Buster Keaton to Johnny Knoxville. Mm-hmm. And insofar as he even does that like falling house bit.
Yeah.
Not in this movie.
In the second one, right? I think. And hurts himself doing it.
Yeah. As he is wont to do.
Hurts himself doing it. Right. Yeah, that's
his references, and even like the little song and dance numbers that they do throughout the series. Mm-hmm. It's just there's a really distinct kind of Looney Tunes, old Hollywood, all these things mixed up into a big blender. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it's so beloved, because it's coming from a place of like ultimately positivity and pure comedy. Yeah,
positivity and like classic comedy in a way. If you just like grew up watching TV, a lot of these things are just, it's like that TV language. All that stuff. You're absolutely right. And then mix it with like also it's skater culture, so it's like Slayer songs and Misfits and Ramones and just really great when the time is right. Just like really kick-ass aggressive music that complements, like, we'll get into the Destruction Car Derby later, but when that's punctuated by Slayer, it's just like, it's a lot of things.
And this is something that only occurred to me earlier today, but there is sort of an example of man versus man, man versus nature, man versus himself. You find that in
you could
in
really,
Jackass.
yeah. We're towing the line about wringing the fun out of it. I'm joking. You could go for even more if you wanted to break down like, the fucking, the Joseph Campbell of it all. That's not him, but just whatever. The man versus himself. You're right. Every one of those, there's like a lot of man versus man, man versus himself. A lot of all of those.
A lot of man versus nature.
You're right. Yeah. And I said before, I was joking. I'm dead serious about when it's so many things, and I wanted to. I think, it's no secret that Jackass is beloved, but I just don't know if you've ever really heard, to my satisfaction, someone appreciate how many different kinds of bits can be a Jackass bit. And it can be boiled down to guys hurting themselves and doing gross shit. And of course, that's so much of it. And it is like, maybe if I haven't watched it in a while and you ask me to talk about Jackass, it is like, and you're not wrong, but it's like, it's like Buster Keaton meets Evel Knievel, and it's all that, but then you see Dave England shit his pants, and you're like, oh, but it's that too.
Or Danger Aaron urinate into a snow cone
and eat the yellow snow cone.
Well, I've not seen that one.
Yeah, but that's how it goes down. and then gets assaulted by Dave England while he's trying to do it. Just yeah. So, anyways,
it is all of these things. Yeah.
I think to appreciate it though, it's definitely the sum of its parts in a way that is so unique and could only be this. And imitators have failed to do it because I think if there's a lot of things they don't get, it's the chemistry, the charisma, the warmth, but it's also just like, oh, you might be doing 2 or 3 of these things. So just I'll try to get through them and quickly, but also just relate each one to maybe an example of it in the film. So and these by no means encompass all of it, but just 10 kinds of Jackass bits. Number 1, blunt force trauma. Maybe the signature Jackass bit. Getting in a shopping cart and just getting pushed into something, you fly out, you're probably going to get hurt, it's probably going to be funny. Some signature bits in this movie are some of the fights, whether it be the sadly deceased Ryan Dunn fighting a female kickboxing champion, only to lose, of course, and Johnny Knoxville fighting Golden Gloves boxing champion Butterbean in a department store. Just exactly what it sounds like. They just set up and have a boxing match. That's one of Knoxville's 3 bad injuries, right, in the movie.
Yeah. So one of the things, again, that's just so distinct about Jackass is specifically Johnny Knoxville's reaction to a near mortal injury that he came very close to sustaining. And that is just like, he seems delighted by it. He cackles, like not even nervous laughter. He really seems tickled by, oh shit, that almost killed me.
Yeah, that almost killed me. And it's not a nervous laughter. It's not as I think about this, you know what, in hindsight, that is kind of funny. It's instantly it's laughing as soon as you wake up. Yeah, exactly. Cracks a joke.
There are roughly 54 bits that comprise Jackass the movie. 3 of them came close to mortally wounding Johnny Knoxville. That's over 5%.
Over 5% of the bits in this movie almost killed Johnny Knoxville.
Seems significant.
Do you know what makes it even more significant? I just realized this. Plenty of bits don't even have Johnny Knoxville. So you could, again, if you were so inclined, if you wanted to do the deeper dive, you could write down how many Johnny Knoxville bits there. It'd be like 33% of this movie, of his parts, almost killed him, or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So on that, one of them is when he fights Butterbean in the department store, and he takes one to the melon, and he falls.
Yeah, I think the fall is what does him.
He falls onto like a part of the store that doesn't have carpet.
It's just like it's just a tile floor in a department.
Yeah, because they're not set up for this sort of thing. They're just kind of blowing in here.
He's not set up for that. He's a college kid.
He got seriously injured. You see him snore instantly because he was knocked out.
Yeah. And
as he's coming to and getting stitches on his head, or somebody, a medic is working on him in some capacity, he cracks a joke. He asks it.
Is Butterbean okay?
And again, he was just knocked out. He has he's concussed.
And that's why he is equal parts Buster Keaton, Evel Knievel, and just Johnny Knoxville. Just as though, like, who else could crack that joke right then or something? Just movie star shit. Just ridiculous. The best. And
then the other, do you want me to go through the other two? The other 2 mortal injury.
Yeah, we have to. Let's not get into separate lists and all this. Yeah.
So there's also the first bit in the movie, besides that's not the opening credits.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Is the rent-a-car crash-up derby, where he rents a car and then kind of turns it into like a crash derby car, and they paint a number on the side of it, the 3 for Dale Earnhardt, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And so they're driving it around in a little crash derby, and the windshield of his car. Help me.
If I'm not mistaken, everybody's pretty much targeting him. There's 3 or 4 cars in this little destruction derby, and it's like the bit is that we're gonna mess up every inch of this car and return it. And so when they all converge on his car after they've been doing it for a while, one car kind of ends up on top of the windshield, drives up. I don't know if it drives up the hood or not, but anyway, the tire of the car plops through the windshield just a few feet from Johnny Knoxville's face, and the tire is still rotating, so you see the tire come through the windshield, and the spin of the tire shoots the shreds of the glass that it's up against, not into Johnny Knoxville's face, but
very close.
It's happening and it's close, and it's like, yeah, and then cracks a joke.
Yeah, inches away, delighted by it.
I guess we didn't reinforce the windshield.
And then the third is another derby related stunt, the golf cart derby. They're just basically fucking around on a golf course, driving golf carts around, and Johnny Knoxville is passenger, and Ryan Dunn is driving, and they're just driving over stuff that isn't meant to be driven over.
Statues from an old miniature golf course, I think, or something, like these ceramic somethings. I don't know.
They go off of it and they crash down, and the way that the cart kind of mushes, Knoxville gets knocked out again.
Yeah, he gets like
But
doubled
it was
over himself.
Really,
it's horrifying and hilarious.
Jeff Tremaine, we listened to we watched it with commentary, and for all three of these bits, Jeff Tremaine said, "I thought you were dead."
Yeah,
and completely.
So that's
he's not moving.
Yeah. So those are the 3 times, and there's ones for like every movie I think with Knoxville.
Yeah. And if you listen to any recent interviews with him, he'll say that his neurologist has told him he cannot have any more concussions.
He's on no more concussions. Doctor's orders.
So that doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So that's number 1. That was a big one. Blunt force trauma. Probably the most significant, the most known. But also, and a lot of these are too. There's a Venn diagram to a lot of these. There's overlap. But after blunt force trauma, I have stunts. That's where we're going to set out. That's the evil Knievel of it, with their take on it being it's meant to go wrong. We don't have the footage until it goes horribly wrong for somebody. The thing we were watching before, they were joking about Bam always landing stuff because he's a skateboarder. They put Dunn in to make sure they get the footage of someone fucking up, because that's what we're here for. But I also like that sincerity of like don't just crash to do it either. Like, right. there's a sincerity to trying.
There's authenticity.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So a good example in this movie, I think, is Johnny Knoxville hangs out with a couple of professional skateboarders that aren't usually featured, but are certainly friends of the show, I believe. And he does what's called a 50-50 grind, or attempts to, but of course a skateboarder that's good would be able to jump the skateboard up. He's more like standing on the railing, they're holding him up, and they let go, and he tries to just skate down a railing, and like they laugh about how it's going to go poorly, then it goes poorly, then they laugh about it, and that's kind of the flow of the stunt segments, the giant rocket that I mentioned earlier from Jackass 2. Throughout the show there's been a thing with like bulls and yaks and these kind of animals that will charge at you, and it's just like, yeah, I guess in a sense it goes well, like that's what you want to do, but yeah, very much a stunt. Maybe obviously some of the best ones. Number 3, the spectacle of it all. Or we were talking about before the show how this almost makes me wonder if this is maybe part of this inspiration, is where some of these guys came from magazines and video, like photography, and putting these videos out where you get this amazing shot like Steve-O shooting a firework out of his butt, but they do it on a rooftop and they do it at night, and there's a spectacle to it all. Steve-O gets a giant tattoo of himself on his back, and it's just like, it's funny how he's like, I don't know how to perform this, because it is just like, it's just the spectacle of it. What's the bit more than just like, well, look at this shit, yeah. I like the way you put this next one.
It's not so much a prank as they make people's world fantastic.
Yeah,
they kind of set up a thing and blow through people's lives very quickly. And it's not really, the joke isn't on other people. It's just presenting them with a reality that is fantastic.
And of course, someone comes up and says, "Hey, that was for a TV show. Will you sign this and stuff?" But yeah, it's that moment where they thought that was just the day they were having, seeing this.
in Jackass the movie, that's I think maybe a great example of that is Wee Man. Their resident little person.
Wee Man.
He's a skateboarder.
Yeah.
I think we all know. I mean, every red-blooded American knows Wee Man at this point.
He came out of WrestleMania and everyone was just so happy to see him. Yeah, it was really something.
So naturally, they put him in a traffic cone, and they were filming on location in Japan. So they just had him sort of like moving about,
running around as a giant traffic cone, blocking off these busy streets, and people just kind of going around him. Or it's fun in the movie. They do a lot of bits from the show that are sort of, they get to do in a bigger, more fun way. And so they always had Preston Lacey, their resident, as they would say, big guy. They're meaner about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. It would be Preston Lacey chasing Wee Man through the streets, whether they're just in underwear, often in their
always
underwear.
A matching outfit. It's just tidy whities,
white tank top or something.
They're wearing or like sumo wrestler wigs and like a little.
Yeah, like the get up, the thong thing, the baggy thong, and running. And Preston's one line, I love it. I love the simplicity. They don't overwrite it. The one line is always, "Get back here!" Chasing Wee Man through the streets. On the TV show, they do it through a high school football practice one time.
Oh my God.
"Get back here!" Yeah, that shit.
And this is not. Then this is on the show, right? Where they have Preston Lacey sitting on a park bench wearing a specific outfit, and then he goes into a nearby porta potty, and there's a big kerfuffle in there. Sounds like he's taking a big. He's having a time in there.
He's having a bad time.
And then he comes out, and it's Wee Man wearing the exact same clothes,
but baggy now.
Yeah.
And sits in the same spot, and the people next are like,
so
what do you think?
What else is that except for just
Because your brain has to go to, okay, this guy didn't just shit off 150 pounds. That's impossible for 18 reasons. But also, what else happened? I'm on a TV show right now.
It's just a fantastic reality.
Yeah, so fantastical world. Number 5 on the list were experts. I thought that was a way to encompass where you go see someone that's in the an expert in their field and they do their thing. And I thought 2 ways this plays out is they seem to see riot control type experts, like will you shoot us with your crowd control weapons? And also you see it with like athletes. That's more in I think 2 and 4. I can definitely think about this guy's a football player. He's going to tackle us. This guy's a hockey player. He's going to hit me in my cup with a slap shot.
The lady that Ryan Dunn fights does have 3 belts.
Exactly right. So we're just going to take experts in fields and apply them in a Jackass way. That's great.
We kept laughing about the guy that was billed as an alligator expert.
They have a real life,
Oh, he looks like an alligator.
They have a gnarly nature expert, and they stuck with him to make Wild Boys. And I think we'll speak on that briefly later. Just to keep moving. Number 6, prosthetics. You see them playing with their old man makeup. I think some of that is, they speak a lot about if they get recognized doing a lot of things that obviously kind of compromises the footage. So they're doing prosthetics here. It kind of dips into the next one. Number 7 is also hidden camera. So you see a combination of that. So number 6, prosthetics. They're running around the streets doing a lot of things. You don't see old people riding their little carts in the gnarly ways that these gnarly men are doing. That's hilarious. And then there's hidden camera stuff like we talked about rental car crash derby. A nice combination of that is the shoplifter with Johnny Knoxville. The origins of the character that would get a full-length movie in Bad Grandpa. Just like send him into the store and have him steal a bunch of shit and see how it goes. I love the chaos of it. That's a really great bit.
There's talking of hidden camera. I guess this is maybe a combination of hidden camera and fantastical world.
Yeah.
But they rent out an office building and hire temp workers, and they have a couple of them bust through the ceiling, dressed up in all black like cat burglars, and there's like a comical bag of jewels.
Yeah, jewels, loose diamonds.
So
of course.
They crash through the ceiling, and then they start yelling at each other to pick up the diamonds. And one temp worker just books it the fuck out of there instantly.
Runs away. So it's like, yeah, again, like that's this chaotic setup. Like, let's see what happens. You probably could have not hoped for something as funny as, will one guy just run and get the fuck out of it?
And they have a couple different shots of it, but that show how instantaneously he ran away. Yeah. And because it's a movie that's so loose and it's like a reality TV movie, oddly, they're able to include the guy. They have him come back and they ask him, like, "Are you okay, man?" Like,
yeah.
And he explains it by saying something like, "I see men in masks. I'm out.
I'm out." Yeah, you got to respect it.
That's probably life-saving instinct.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. I'll skip back to that one because number 9 on my list, I wrote the circus because there's the circus of it all, right? There's the thing, and then so much of the best and the funniest footage are, like I said, the prelude to the thing or the aftermath of the thing. Case in point, I've mentioned it a few times, kind of love it or hate it, kind of a signature Jackass bit. Dave England goes to a hardware store and takes a shit in a toilet. In the movie, you see, I think he's like taking X-Lax or something because they're, again, the movie is stunts performed by professionals. Lest we forget.
Professional what? I'm not sure.
And so we see this entirely separate thing of him not making it and shitting his pants in the van and the chaos that ensues, like a man puking and stuff like that.
Poor camera guy.
Yeah, and we surprisingly, I think, we haven't talked about maybe the signature bit of the show, of the series. Ryan Dunn, toy car in his butt, goes to get an x-ray. And so much of that bit is he's doing it in the hotel room and their medic is there complaining about his job because they have to have a medic around, They have to have a medic supervise Ryan Dunn putting a toy car inside of a condom, lubing up the condom, and then inserting that into his butt in a room full of people, and the medic just sort of dejected in the corner, saying to no one in particular, "I gotta get a new job." Yeah. And again, the little touches, Bam dressed like a doctor, monitoring his heart rate. We always have appreciated that so much, the little touches on the scene, yeah.
A little bit of trivia on that scene. They're filming it in their hotel room, because a lot of this is sort of like pretty loose, obviously.
It's
But
the circus,
The alligator expert comes to the room just to kind of say, hey guys, what's going on here? And then his face falls when he sees Ryan Dunn in the middle of preparing for his stunt.
He gets the whole bit explained to him while it's like happening,
And this is a guy that deals with animals and that sort of thing. So, and he's always relating things to nature. And apparently he just leans to Jeff Tremaine and said, "This does not happen in nature."
Yeah. Didn't you tell me that they said they didn't get a good, like the audio is not, they didn't get a real clean thing. It's not in the film, but
right.
it's like, yeah, this guy is a very much, he looks like he's in the best way possible from the woods, the guy that could survive out there. So yeah, she's like, this does not happen in nature.
In Jumanji, when Robin Williams comes back and being in the fucking jungle for all that time.
He didn't put anything in his ass out there.
He looks like that guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Absolutely. Bone teeth necklace thing or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you get through this, so then
we go back to 8.
Yeah, backing up too with Manny, the nature guy. That's what I had also. Number 9 is the nature bits. So I said Ryan Dunn putting carbon doesn't happen in nature, but a lot of things that do happen in nature are explored. And I don't think this many things happen unless there was a genuine interest in the outdoors and animals and stuff like that. The way that Chris Pontius and Steve-O especially do these nature segments that they then did like 5 or 6 years of this show Wild Boys, that was great. And then Knoxville going on to Wild Boys and filming is what led to them doing Jackass 2.
Because Jeff Tremaine asks if you're willing to do all of these, if you're willing to take all these physical risks for the small screen, why don't we just make another movie?
For MTV2 at that point.
He's like, I don't know, I just kind of like doing it.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, so with that, one of my favorites from this one is Alligator Tightrope, where Steve-O, hilariously, everyone thinks they think he can walk a tightrope because of Clown College.
No, because he told the director that he could.
That's right. But maybe that's why it's like a believable, hey, rock and roll.
Because you went to circus school, as they put it.
In the TV show, I think he did stilts. I think you see him juggle. So it's like, it's plausible.
A history there.
But he gets about 2 steps on that tightrope, and then there's just a water full of alligators, and yeah, great footage ensues.
And also, another little bit of trivia. You see the tattoo of himself in progress. You see his head floating there.
And the bit hasn't been, we don't know he's getting a tattoo of himself, but when you rewatch it, it's funny that he's like, oh yeah, that was a project. That giant life-size tattoo of you on your back was like... and then the last thing, some of my absolute favorite stuff, the downtime, which seems to be really, it's kind of like you said, like, Manny just popping into the hotel room to see what's going on. There's Wee Man just taking a run and kicks himself in the head, right in the forehead. They're clearly just sitting around doing nothing, like, chilling out between stuff or something.
The sound it makes is so satisfying.
Insane. And it doesn't seem like the first time it's happened. I get the feeling, Another one, it's a great little just stolen shot of they're shooting from a distance. Preston Lacey gets out of a hot tub and has a beer. It's
revealed that he's not wearing a bathing suit.
He's not wearing a bathing suit. He's wearing his tidy whities.
That are wet and see-through at this point.
Yeah, so you see his big wet ass. And then he just walks by a duck. And then it's on to the next thing. But all of these 10 things I've described, edited together with a nice flow and a nice sequence, add up to just like... And then there's things you could come up with bits that like, where does that even fit in the list? And it doesn't, right? Like, we haven't talked about plenty of bits in the movie still, I think. But yeah, so that was an overly long list of, I think, like the 10 different kinds of bits that make up this great comedy.
And really just how maybe the most memorable Jackass bit is Ryan Dunn's inserting the car into his butt, and then they go get an x-ray, and sort of the payoff of it is the doctor, the physician explaining you get the visual payoff of seeing the little metal car on the x-ray.
Yeah, and 1 or 2 people
and you sort of see
looking at
you see the employees realize what's going on here. And then you have Ryan Dunn he plays it so well, and it's so impressive how he's able to not laugh or overdo it or whatever. Yeah. Just asking the doctor, they're both staring at the x-ray and saying, like, well, how did a toy car get up there?
Yeah. They're mystified. His performance is great, and I don't know, because you see him going in and out of the doctors. He's like... not loving it. Like he's got a foreign object up there. He's walking very slowly. So it seems like he's able to channel that into his, like, he keeps it kind of low key, and he doesn't go over the top. But I wonder if that was if he just channeled his this sucks right now energy into just more like what's going on right now. But yeah, you're right. He plays it so well.
Yeah.
And it's great too, because I wonder, so much of it had to be like, we'll get that great shot. they get such great stuff from the doctor, and you can hear him well. Like we know with the Manny thing, you don't even know if the audio is gonna. It just it all comes across so well, and it's the closure to the movie. Just because they said they learned along the way, we just have to close with the funniest thing, and this is easily the funniest thing, And
And I don't know if we also want to talk about just when we talk about the funniest parts of Jackass and the sort of things they do. Especially in the most recent movie, you see a lot of celebrity cameos, celebrity crossover, whatever. But I think one of the most fun things they did was on their TV show when they had Brad Pitt, of all people,
in like I think
come on to do 2 bits.
Must be like 2000 or 2001 because it's the 3rd season of the show. 2001. Thank you. So he's like fully. I mean, not that he's not been a movie star at any point in the last several decades, but he's just
very much Brad Pitt, one of the most famous people in the world. And I guess it was it was through Spike Jonze that this thing came to be ultimately. But and so one of the 2 bits they do is they have Brad Pitt stand in line in front of Pink's Hot Dogs in LA, and after people notice, oh shit, that's Brad Pitt standing there, they have a van come up and abduct him.
And then you have to get on YouTube and find the Brad Pitt Jackass stuff. Yeah, then they were smart enough to have, that's a brilliant bit, smart enough to have cameramen linger around the scene and watch people try to convince 911 that they just watched Brad Pitt get kidnapped.
What just happened? What the
Brad Pitt got kidnapped. Brad Pitt was in line and he was just kidnapped and thrown into a van. I'm really not kidding.
And then there's something about the sense of humor on display when then the second bit they do is just night monkeys. 2, I think there was a first segment, but
they all dress up in gorilla suits.
They're just 5 guys in gorilla suits running around, and
including Brad Pitt.
One
of those famous people in the world.
And like
so running around, they're just getting into mayhem, like horsing around. They're at one point they're in a grocery store parking lot and they have a cart full of bananas, and one of them's in there with all the bananas.
And they do the shop, yeah. And it feels like they probably have a few ideas, but then they're like, let's just fucking run around and see what happens. And then you kind of lose track of which one's Brad Pitt, and then one takes a gnarly bump and the head rolls off. You're like, oh my god, Brad Pitt's out there going for it. Like,
he seems like a fun guy.
It makes you love Brad Pitt for doing it, or it did for me at least, and then just Jackass for doing that, and just like if they just figured out that Brad Pitt would be involved, for those to be the 2 things they came up with, I think just speaks to like the often unheralded wide variety of Jackass bits.
And it does seem like they do seem like a family. They really do love each other, you can tell. But it does seem like a stressful work environment. The production takes an emotional toll and physical toll, obviously, on the cast and crew. Quote from Johnny Knoxville. He says, "You kind of want to be there with us, I guess, which, trust me, you don't. It's a very nerve-wracking set. It starts off with everyone having energy, but by the last month or 2, people are crying and falling apart mentally and emotionally. You can tap someone on the shoulder with your finger and they'll jump. It's a pretty combative set." And that makes sense because they're always sort of fucking with each other. You never quite know what's going to happen. Like one of the recurring bits throughout the movie, sort of just like as a transitional thing in between larger pieces, they'll have like these smaller, short kind of things. And one recurring one is a camera guy gets like a razor, a buzzer,
hair clippers, yeah.
And sort of they put like psycho music behind the camera, and then he comes up and shaves a little bit off somebody's head,
a chunk of their hair. Yeah,
they're just terrorizing each other, and you can tell. A few different times you see somebody sleeping on the set, and then they're the victim of some sort of a prank, and you can tell by the way that they wake up once they're physically fucked with that they're like, oh shit, I was trying not to fall asleep on the set.
Yeah, because it's just the thing that happens.
We were joking that it's like Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like the teenagers trying not to fall asleep.
All you're doing is then you're like walking around and, oh no, I fell asleep. No,
wake me up.
Now they're pissing on me. Yeah, absolutely. And those are even a few bits I don't know where those fit into the list of bits, but yeah, camera. You know what I love about the hair bit too is that you see him get like Johnny Knoxville. Like there's not a lot of preferential treatment, you know, like even Matt Hoffman, who's on there, like kind of a guy that's been on there time and time again, but is also just like a mega BMX superstar. He's hanging out. They fucking shave the side of his head off. Like there's no, it's all pretty fair in that way, which makes it enjoyable also. Like you don't want to see people bullying or anything, you know.
Yeah, and that kind of speaks to sort of the thesis, for lack of a better word, of Jackass, that its imitators don't get, like, you watch like YouTube pranks or whatever, and they're so mean-spirited, and it's hard to, nobody wants to watch, or at least I don't want to watch.
Bothering somebody, man.
You're just
or whatever,
pestering people, or like this is a mean prank, or you're making them think something bad happened, whatever it is. This isn't funny.
Yeah.
This is just some person that you're bothering them.
Yeah.
With your content. And
yeah.
The thing about Jackass is that it's the target of the prank or whatever, the butt of the joke is them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a couple of quotes from Chris Pontius and Johnny Knoxville, respectively. Chris Pontius says, "Jackass is about us being the butt of the joke in the end. I don't ever want to do anything mean. It's supposed to just be mean to us. That's really the only rule." And Johnny Knoxville says, "We do some pretty offbeat things, and sometimes it's a little naughty, but there's still a sweetness and an innocence to it, and that's born out of the friendship, but it's also born out of these guys' natures. That can't be duplicated." Suffice to say, if you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough.
That's right. No better way to say it.
We sort of touched on this, but just to kind of restate it, I guess. It's just really weird to me that Jackass the movie, 2002, 49% critics consensus. Jackass Forever, 2022, 85%.
85.
And nothing's changed.
You know, it's funny because if anything, you know, I'm being humorous. I'm being very funny right now. But when it's like, is it just like, oh, because they go harder these days? Because you see like almost like more dicks in it? Is that what the critic? That's not really it. But, you know, like I feel like as time has gone on, they've like always pushed, like I was saying before, with like the punching of the scrotum in hyper slow motion. It's just like, it's gotten somehow more grotesque over the years. Like I remember like Jackass 2.
Oh, yeah.
There's like, you just feel like, wow, they're like escalating everything.
But
I don't think that's what critics got into, though.
No.
You know, I don't think that's what's going on.
The only possible explanation is that those of us that were in middle school or high school when the show first started, the movie first came out, like we're now old enough to be the ones writing the reviews.
Look, I don't want to be a bully here, but let's just say it. Cooler critics.
Cooler critics. Summer critics, cooler critics. I don't know. Maybe the Western civilization has declined. And you know what? Is that so bad?
No, man. Those are good movies, too.
Those are good movies.
Good trilogy. Can't talk about it. They probably got good reviews. But anyways, there you go. 2002's Jackass the movie. If you haven't seen the TV show, don't you worry. If you haven't played the PS2 game, that's probably okay. I think it was based on the TV show.
And for the record, the Jackass, 2.5, 3.5, that kind of stuff, the sort of things that might seem like they're not worth watching, those can sometimes be like the more fun things to watch because it's so interesting, because you really see so much behind the curtain. Not that you don't in the movie, but you see like maybe bits that they didn't get or whatever.
There's a sort of reflection on the overall experience in something like Jackass 2.5. Like, we tried to do this in Jackass 2, but it just didn't work. And so some bits need that threaded through it to then make it a whole complete package. But then that stuff's really, really great.
Like I didn't really enjoy Bad Grandpa as a whole because I just don't really think a narrative structure combined with real pranks works super well. But Bad Grandpa 0.5, where it's basically just all of the, it's a like a really extended making of feature.
Yeah, and it's a lot of footage of Knoxville as an old man mixing it up with the public and whatnot.
Spike Jones,
and that's the stuff right there.
Yeah, that's so.
Bad Grandpa, no doubt, contributed to the decline of Western civilization. But we all are.
And we're happy to be adding on to that.
Do it again next week.
Well, thank you for listening to the podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
How did a car toy get there?
Maybe you stuck it up your ass.